guys, welcome back out to the channel. Today we're going to talk about 10 foods you can eat to help get you over post-flu fatigue and poor digestion. Finally, you think you're over the flu. It's been months and you've had this chronic cough that you've taken multiple rounds of antibiotics for, and you think you might have the whole thing under control and that you're finally over this flu. So why do you still feel fatigued? Why do you still have a poor digestion? And why are you having a hard time concentrating? Let's look at what Chinese medicine thinks of post-flu fatigue, poor digestion, and low concentration. First, let's look at the flu today. The flu today seems to be putting in more overtime than it ever has. It has this relentless drive to just embed itself in super deep. And that means when you're working to get rid of it, you have to work at it really, really hard. And that might mean you end up taking multiple rounds of antibiotics. It might mean you're adding in Chinese herbs. It might mean you're taking over-the-counter medications, a lot of rest, drinking a lot of fluids. You're throwing everything at this, plus the kitchen sink. You end up taking a lot more medication than your body can handle. And like foods in Chinese medicine, drugs also have a temperature, a direction, and an organ channel that they address. When we look at antibiotics in Chinese medicine, we consider them to be bitter and cold. So they cool off things, which makes sense because you usually have some sort of fever going on, and they drain heat out of the body. Bitter has a tendency to drain downwards. And we also have learned in Western medicine that antibiotics have a tendency to negatively impact the spleen and stomach organ. So they recommend that you take probiotics when you take antibiotics. And in Chinese medicine, why they think that antibiotics negatively impact the spleen channel is because the spleen likes things warm, and its natural tendency is to move upwards. So antibiotics are completely opposite of what the spleen likes. And when you take too many of them, you find that your digestion becomes really poor, that you get full easy, you might get diarrhea, you get a foggy head. These are all signs in Chinese medicine of a weakness in the spleen channel. And then we have our over-the-counter medications like decongestants and cough suppressants, which have a tendency to dry out lung tissues. And if we have to use those in overtime, that can leave the lungs too dry and leave you with a dry cough. So all the medications that we take to get over these horrible flus, if we have to take too much of them, they can leave us with different side effects that after we're over the flu, we have to work at improving. How are you going to recover from a horrible bout of the flu? Your sanctuary is going to be found in food. And the first thing is going to be to strengthen your spleen to help fight off that fatigue and that weak digestion. And by strengthening your spleen, you should also help eliminate a foggy head, stuffy nose, and stuffed up ears. You're going to strengthen your spleen by eating foods that Chinese medicine considers bland, warm, and lifting. And of course, everything in moderation. So here's 10 foods to incorporate into your post-flu regime to help strengthen your digestion, lungs, and reduce your fatigue. For meat eaters, there's two great choices. One's going to be turkey and the other is going to be chicken. Both of these are warm and they're bland and they help restore your energy. I'm going to use my first choice, which is chicken. I'm going to use an organic chicken, and I love chicken thighs, so I am going to look for chicken thighs with skin on. And then I'm going to add to that some vegetables. And one of the things that I'm going to add is mushrooms. In general, mushrooms are warm. They help rebuild your energy and your immune system, and they can reduce phlegm. The ones that I'm going to add are going to be the shiitake and the maitake mushrooms. Since nothing tastes good without spices, You're going to want to incorporate spices that are warm, that aid the digestion, help build your qi. And here's spices that do that: cumin, fennel, turmeric, garlic, and ginger. To add in starch, there's a couple of really good options that fit in this bland, warm, lifting category. And it's going to be taro and basmati rice, which I'm choosing. And either one of these can be a great option. Both of them help with loss of appetite and weak digestion experienced after the flu. And both of these are grown in southern climates, so they're going to be just slightly warm. Another thing to look at is fruits. And why you want to look at fruits is because they're naturally moistening, and usually after the flu, if you've been doing a lot of decongestion, you've got some issues with a dry throat, you've got some issues with a dry cough. And so again, fruits are going to be mostly cooling, and some of them are warming. And I'm going to look for the fruits that are warming and moistening. And what I'm going to choose, well, there's a number of them that you can choose, like pears, apples, or dates. And I'm going to choose dates. I'm going to add in some foods to add flavor. Onions are great to help build up the yang qi, so to help build up our energy and help with the movement of energy. So, when you're all phlegmy and congested, nothing's moving. This helps break up phlegm and helps move that congestion. And I'm also going to add in coconut milk because coconut milk is warming and tonifies the qi and blood. If we look at everything, you can see we have everything we need to make a great curry. And you can already imagine how healthy curries can be for our overall health. So our next choice is going to be how you cook everything. And the goal again is to ensure everything in moderation. Okay, so I've salted the chicken, and in Chinese medicine, how you cook food will change its temperature and change how it works in the body. What I'm going to do with these chicken thighs is I'm going to just kind of brown them first, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to simmer them, because they say that kind of slow, moist cooking has a tendency to add more moisture to the foods. When I think I have these browned enough, I am just going to add in some of the chicken broth. I'm going to add in some of the spices with this. And so I'm going to add in the turmeric, some turmeric, ginger, and garlic. And I'm going to put the temperature on a low heat, and I'm just going to simmer it. Because I'm going to toast the spices. And so I decided I was going to use radish, but that is all the radish I'm using. I've gotten taken for a ride with radish before, and fresh radish can be really, really, really sharp. Okay, so we've got garlic, we've got ginger. I did do some burdock. We've got the radish. I did some garlic and turmeric. And I'm just going to saute these up. Now that's going to make them a little bit warmer than they are normally. It seems to open the spices up and just make them a little bit more fragrant. I want to put the onions in early on, just because they take so long to cook, and they're great to infuse foods with their flavor. Now you could have done that when you were sauteing the spices, and I think I'm going to add some onions into the chicken that's simmering too, to add some more flavor to that. So I've added in coconut, and I'm going to just kind of mix that in so everything's one consistency. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this simmer too. Let's look at where we're at. We have the chicken simmering. That's going to take about an hour. We have the curry the base simmering. And so now we have a couple more things that we have to do. We have to get the starches cooked, and that's the taro, and that's going to take about an hour to boil. And taro, you can cook it just like a potato. You're going to wash off the husk, and so after you get done washing the husk, just throw it in water and boil it for about an hour. After it's done boiling, it'll be soft, just like potatoes, and then you can peel that husk off of the taro. The other thing that I'm going to do right now is I am going to take the remaining vegetables, which is the mushrooms, the fennel, and the dates, and cut those all up. And when the taro's done, when the chicken's done, when the first hour on the curry is done, I am going to put these vegetables in and let the curry simmer for about another half hour. The chicken's done, the taro's done, so I'm going to take those two things and I'm going to move them to a pan because I want to take the chicken broth that I simmered the chicken in and put it into the curry sauce, and I'm going to, in addition, I'm going to just test the curry sauce, see what it is. With the amount of chicken broth I put in it, it's turned out to be a little less like curry and a lot more like chicken broth. So what I did is I grabbed some powdered coconut milk, mixed it up with some of the broth, and I put that into the curry mix. I then added in the last of the vegetables, the mushrooms, the fennel, and the dates. Now, the fennel is like horseradish. It is pretty pungent, so I really used a very little bit, maybe a tablespoon of chopped fennel. After the curry's done simmering for the last half hour, I'm going to turn everything off. I'm going to take the curry mixture and I'm just going to pour it over the chicken and the taro, and that is going to be dinner. And this is a dinner that is going to help build up your immune system, help boost your energy levels, help eliminate fatigue, and strengthen your digestion. Have fun with this recipe. You can add a whole lot of other things to this to make this all your own. And you're going to want to be here for my next episode because I am going to identify 5 foods that you can take, that you can use when you feel like you're getting the cold or flu this year, and help build your or boost your immune system. So my next episode, it's going to be about identifying 5 things you can use at home on a daily basis to help build your immune system if you feel yourself getting a cold or a flu coming in. And we'll talk a little bit about colds and flus from a Chinese medical perspective, both the H1N1 this year and from the research coming out of China, the COVID-19. They're both cold invasions. So we're going to look at some of the warming things that you can use to help encourage your immune response and get the cold out, because you're going to find you're really cold with that H1N1. Okay, guys, thanks so much for stopping in. And until next time, I'll catch you on the other side.